Hi, I'm Cassandra and I'm from the North London School of Sports Massage, and we are going to be delving into our brand new series of beginners massage techniques. And we're going to kick off the series here with looking at our setup, our posture, and how we can move around the bed. And then further on down the road, we're going to either look at foundational techniques such as effleurage, petrissage, compression, and so on. And we're looking at here whether this is for the seasoned therapist that is experiencing aches, sore thumbs, wrists, lower back issues, or for a new therapist that's entering the profession, this is going to be for you. And just as a caveat though as well, that this doesn't replace hands-on and in face-to-face teaching. This is to help support that education that you've already received. And to also just note that if we can make some small adjustments here, they can have some really big outcomes. This for me personally is a really, really big part as a therapist longevity, is looking at our setup. Something we focus really heavily on in our introduction course here at the school, that if we get our foundation correct, everything else should stack on top of it really beautifully. So let's crack on with looking at the bed height. So quite often we'll find that, well, we want to get close to the bed, we want the client closer to us. In actuality, right now, this bed is where I need to be working at. And this is the height that I would like to have my bed at. Also, this is going to be client dependent on size and anatomical differences to our clients, to ourselves. However, what we often find though is people will have the beds a little bit higher. And that's makes complete sense because we think that we want to have access to our arms to be closer to their body. However, what this then does, instead of me being able to use my body weight, I'm all of a sudden now just using my upper body in order to apply my pressure. It's going to get very tiring very quickly. Because where do I need my power to come from? I need it to come from my base. I need it to come from my feet and my legs. So if the bed's up here, I'm going to tire my wrists, my hands, my shoulders, and so on, and even my lower back. So I'm looking at the bed realistically. The lower, the better. I can always adjust my stance so I can get my lunge longer if my bed's a little bit too low. But what I can't do is readjust myself to stand on my tiptoes if my bed is too high. So here I might even just go a little bit higher here for myself. The luxury of having a hydraulic bed for this. However, not everyone is lucky enough to have in their clinics a hydraulic bed. I myself actually work with a static bed as well. So I tend to have a preferred height. What I'm looking at here is essentially my fingertips can generally reach the bed, maybe a little bit higher. And that's a good rule of thumb. Then now what I'm going to look at here is my stance and my base. I'm looking at all times that I want to allow my body to be as close to the bed as possible without compromising my posture or putting any strain on my lower back. So the reason why I don't have my leg stance this way, which is my leg closest to the table forward, is that now in order to apply my technique, I'm having to twist through my torso. So instead, we take a lunge in a split stance. My leg closest to the table goes back. My front leg, or sorry, pardon me, my leg furthest away from the bed is going to be my front leg. And I'm just going to go through the motion of my legs of what I would do as I start to administer a technique such as effleurage. And that is, I start to push with my back leg and bend through my front knee. So I'm really slowing this down here, but essentially it's a lunge. So I'm going to push off to bend through my front knee, push off with the back foot. And if that's the case here, as I'm going to just do superficially on Alina's leg here, is as I push off, you can see my hands follow. So my hands actually don't move until my feet start to move and my legs start to move. I'm keeping what I would call a power circle, or a power circle for lack of a better description, here in front of me, again for the purposes of effleurage. This angle between my arm and my body doesn't change. So as I go through this stroke here, I don't close this down because that means that I'm not moving through my legs properly. That stays relatively the same as I go through the movement. So how does this then actually look as I put this all together. So I've got the height, I've got the movement through my legs where they need to be. Hips are forward on to where the direction is that I need to go. So I'm just going to expose Alina's leg here. Okay, so I'm just going to apply a little bit of lotion. Beautiful. So as we mentioned, here's my starting position. And if you might notice, the hand that I have on her leg is the arm that's closest to the table in this position as well. Because again, where I'm trying to access the top portion of her leg here, if I used my outside arm to come in, again, I'm twisting my body to get there. So I'm going to use the arm that's closest to the table as well as I'm going along the leg. I've got this barrier here on my hand. So it feels a little bit more secure and maintaining privacy for our clients as well. So here I am. So start, power circle, hands on the client, and I'm going to begin to move by, just notice carefully that I'm pushing from my back leg, bending through my front knee, and I'm actually going to need to take a little bit of a step to go through and then tail off. I'm going to come back and start again. So again, to take up my pressure or my depth in her tissue, it's through my back leg pushing through my arms. So taking up my depth, here's my starting point. I push, I start to lunge, bend through that front knee. And travel the distance of the quad here. So now that I've put Alina into prone, we're going to look at the ability to move around the bed while maintaining good body mechanics as we do this and applying our techniques. So all I'm going to do with Alina is a effleurage at the moment. Again, using everything that we covered when Alina was in supine. And just being mindful that as well as we go through some effleurage on her back, we're being mindful of all bony prominences and so on. And then if I wanted to end up around the other side of the bed, there's a couple of things I want to consider. So firstly, it's going to be body mechanics, but also her awareness of where I am in the space around her. And by that I mean because she's face down, she can't see where I'm going to be. So it is quite key that I do have contact with her as I move around the bed and I don't just sort of end up on the other side and my hands are off her and she's wondering where I'm going to end up next. So from here, as I start with my effleurage, I'm maintaining my pressure, but then I'm going to need to come off a little bit, which is fine. As I gently swap around, you can see that I had my left hand down before, but now I've got my right. And again, still pushing with my back leg, moving over to the other side of her body. And again, I don't have a huge amount of pressure as I twist my body around, but it's just trying to make it fluid. So now this time, as I'm on the other side of the bed, the arm that's closest to the bed, which is now my right hand, is down. Let me go through the movement. That wraps up the segment on body mechanics and our basic setup for our bed height, our how do we move through our strokes or our techniques, as such, or our stance essentially, and as well as how do we maintain good body mechanics as we move around the bed as well. Then in our next section, we're going to start to look at foundational techniques such as effleurage and petrissage, which are the techniques that we utilize in our introduction course. But then also further on to that, we're going to add in some compression, vibration, and deportment, which is other foundational techniques that we teach further on into our level 5 diploma course as well. And all of these together will build up your strong base as a soft tissue therapist.